Welcome back. Now, Chinese fashion retailers Shein and Temu have thrived under South Africa's de minimis tax rule. This, however, is coming to an end as government closes in on that loophole, which will see these clothing giants be taxed exactly the same way as local clothing retailers. Much to the disdain of consumers, the move has been welcomed by business and unions. Michael Lawrence, Executive Director of the National Clothing Retail Federation, joins us with more detail. Thank you so much for your time. Now, just considering the fact that this tax enforcement affects parcels that are less than 500 Rand, how far do you think it will go in terms of helping local retailers, but also curbing competition from these overseas online retail merchants?
Well, we've seen a substantial number of parcels come in under the 500 Rand mark. It's a little bit like your speed authorities say the speed is 60, but they only really bill you at 65.
Yeah.
There was always a duty of 45%, but the small parcels they ignored for various reasons. It just made life easier. There weren't that many of them. We're going to see a big difference coming through now because the number of parcels that are coming through will make a big difference to national revenue and the market disruptor. It used to be a small gap in the market. Those who took advantage of this have made a big market out of the gap. And we are going to see a substantive change to and benefit to not just to retailers, more importantly to the local manufacturers who no longer have to compete against product that's coming in at far less than it should.
Well, actually, just before I go to the consumer, you talk about how, it was always supposed to be like this, but it was really an administrative issue and I guess headache. It would have been a headache for SARS. What do you make now of the kind of burden that this is going to add onto SARS? And I do understand that you've said that you are willing to help them as well with, the AI and trying to streamline those operations. But how long do you think that will actually filter through to the system where there is an efficient system there?
Well, that's really for SARS to tell us. We don't have a full idea of the scope of the problem ourselves. We've seen impact on our markets. We know that it has made a difference, and we appreciate it as a new competitor. We recognize it. How much of an impact it makes in terms of SARS, we don't know. We've, as you've indicated, we've reached out to them and said, look, if there are things we can do to assist, please, they must ask us. We're not looking for favors. We're looking to make sure that we have a fair and level playing field. So we're waiting on them now to give us some kind of indication. But all of life and all of business is about change all of the time. So why is this different? How is this different? We understand that. We recognize it. Today, it's about new technologies and new opportunities because of IT and digital platforms. Tomorrow, it'll be something completely different. We'll adapt all the time.
Michael, are you still there with us?
I'm here.
Yes, there we go. Michael, I'm coming in now as a consumer, and on behalf of consumers, I understand that this is a double-edged sword. I understand, that this is good for business, this is good for jobs, but at the same time, as consumers are under a very, very constrained environment. They're financially strained, and obviously if you look at the fact that the consumers that would buy parcels worth less than 500 Rand are probably the ones that are the most financially vulnerable. So is this tax change not putting more pressure on the consumers in such a tough economic environment? Because obviously there was a reason for them buying from Shein and Temu, which were cheaper.
So you're the first person who has ever asked me this question, and well done to you. I want to say to you, people who have access to internet platforms and the ability to buy off digital platforms and using credit cards and the like are not the most vulnerable of consumers. Okay, we're talking actually about fundamentally a middle-class consumer here. We have in our retail world far more vulnerable consumers that we are actually very interested in servicing and get really great service from our platforms. We have employed people who are far more vulnerable from the manufacturing sector within the value chain that we're trying to protect. So we're not talking about such economically vulnerable persons. What is true, of course, is that the household purse for all segments of our population has been under substantive stress over the last decade. And we know this is not a happy space for some people to be faced with. But you've got to look at a big picture. We can't always take advantage just as small parties in a process like this.
I don't know. I think I beg to differ there, because a lot of people have access to a smartphone, and obviously some debit cards that do allow online purchases. So I guess that's maybe up for debate, because even the petitions, the online petitions that have been signed by consumers, they're saying we actually go there because they're cheaper. And I mean, I've also just, gotten comments from some of the articles that I've read, that the South African consumers also cannot cut costs as much as these overseas merchants. What do you have to say about that?
Well, the duty that's charged is for government to decide. We just asked for a common duty. We didn't ask for government to necessarily raise the duty. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm going to use my speed limit analogy. You know, there are some roads I would prefer to be driving a little faster on. There are some duties I would prefer to be paying a little less for. But there are other reasons and other processes that determine which duty is applicable at any given time. And really, we're in the hands of government to make that determination. But we need a common platform and a fair and level playing field. We're perfectly entitled to that. And the South African consumer is entitled to that. The consumer is entitled to know the price they see is the price they're going to pay. They're entitled to know that the product they get is protected under the Consumer Protection Act. There are all kinds of commonalities that need to work for all of us. That's all we've asked for, is fair playing field.
All right, I understand that. But just on really the point of why can local retailers not make their prices cheaper? Is there a limit set on that? Because I mean, the overseas online merchants have said that their models actually make them cheaper at the core. What is holding back local retailers to kind of relieve that financial distress from consumers?
Again, you're asking a very complex question. The price points to consumers, you must remember, South African retailers are immensely competitive amongst each other. There's a huge competition for your spend when you walk into any mall, when you go onto any platform, digital platform. There's an immense amount of competition. No one is going to charge you more than they can afford to charge you. They want your custom, they want your loyalty, they want you to appreciate their brand, they want you to love their product. So no one is going to charge you more than they truly are able to see as being an appropriate price point. We battle with the fact of choosing the best price for the consumer in an aggressive way as South African retailers amongst each other, and when you're competing with any of the offshore platforms that we have now. You're probably getting the best value that you can. And there are a number of very complex commercial and economic reasons why other players are able to do better, including the fact that they may not be sourcing product responsibly. They may not have the best labor conditions for their industrial workers. There are all kinds of issues which are going to take us a hang of a long time to unpack, which go into the eventual price that a product has when it reaches a shelf or a digital platform.
Does the fact that they actually don't have a physical presence in the country make things harder for the local retailers?
We think it makes it a huge problem for the consumer in terms of consumer protection. Let's just quickly say that. But certainly the cost of doing business in South Africa comes with a number of modalities, social accountability issues. There are all kinds of substantive challenges. The cost of business in South Africa at the moment is a challenge and is a matter that is being looked at quite aggressively by South African business and by the retail CTFL master plan in particular. And we're hoping to be able to make some inroads, especially with as government continues to change.
All right. Well, we do have to wrap up the conversation. Thank you so much for your insights there, Michael. Really appreciate the time. That was Executive Director of the National Clothing Retail Federation, Michael Lawrence.